That's on now. Good evening, everybody, elected members, staff, and the gallery, and those that might be tuning in. Welcome to our special council meeting tonight. I'd like to start with the statement of acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge this land that we meet on today as the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Moving through the agenda, going through to roll call, we have an apology from Councillor Lorna. Unfortunately, he's ill. And we also have a motion to grant leave of absence for Councillor Samble. Do I have a mover for Councillor Samble? You're happy to move that way, Councillor Davies? Do I have a second, Councillor Vallelonga? I'm going to put that, all those in favour. That is carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Moving right along, we have no leave of absence other than the one we just voted through. No non-attendance as described in apologies. We have no recorded deputations, which takes us straight into the decision reports, item 4.1, page 4 of 32. This one I might hand over to the CEO if you want to say some words, and then I'm going to take some questions before I look for a mover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Mayor, apologies.
It's okay.
I just thought, for the benefit of elected members and also our community that might be listening, tonight, just to be clear, is the opportunity for Council to essentially refer our draft budget as it's currently being prepared for the purpose of the Audit Committee to share their thoughts back with Council. So Council isn't actually adopting formally its draft tonight. It's just the opportunity to share it with our Audit Committee, for them to share their thoughts back with us, so that Council can be fully informed when it considers the draft ultimately. One of the other things I'd just like to touch on, just to make sure that there wasn't any confusion, there was a little bit of maybe some confusion about what was below the line. I just want to confirm we've only got one project that's presented this evening that's below the line, i.e. not funded at this point in time, and that's the youth mural for the sum of $30,000. Just the way we compiled the document, you may have thought that there was a whole lot of projects below the line, but it's certainly not the case. But with that little intro, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions that may come.
No worries at all. And just to confirm, our members on the Audit and Risk are myself and I believe Councillor Lorna now. So any questions that you do have that you want to pass on to Audit and Risk, by all means, we are your vessel. I know Councillor Lorna is away at the moment, but I'll certainly be your conduit direct to the Audit and Risk, as well as any other questions you might have. So to that note, do we have any questions that anyone wants to raise before I look for a mover? Deputy Mayor, you've got a question?
Yeah, just to start us off with a couple of questions. I guess we've got quite a whole comprehensive description there about the Development Compliance Officer, but for the CEO, perhaps fill us in on a bit more about the logic behind that and how things have changed over time to, mean that this is an important new position that we need to be adding.
Mr. CEO?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Good question. We're seeing two things come into effect at this point in time. One is to do with the growth of the town of Gawler, and we're seeing higher levels of development occurring. And with that becomes the need to ensure that people are complying with the development application conditions, particularly that's been placed upon them. We're seeing this play out in some instances where developers aren't complying with the need, for example, for dust suppression, or are they complying with the particular conditions that have been placed on the developments. Now, as it stands, my planning team and the compliance team are currently fully, their resources have been fully deployed, and to ensure that we're doing the right thing by our community, I need this resource so that we can ensure the community's interests have been looked after through all the increased development that's going on. So that's what's driving it.
If I could ask a follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely, please.
Yeah, so just to see that I've understood, so that's some of that sort of bread and butter stuff where we've got people in the community who are coming to council, coming to elected members saying, we've got dust from this development, we've got these issues, we've got these trees that have been removed and they shouldn't, etc. And this is actually boosting the capacity to actually deal with those and stand up for ratepayers against developers not doing the right thing.
Quite correct.
Yeah,
That will be a byproduct of this position.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question,
Yeah,
Deputy Mayor?
for sure. I think that does very well, and I think people will be very happy with that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Davies?
Yeah, just on the Development Compliance Officer, just what are your thoughts around why you're not expecting to recruit for it until the third quarter, as opposed to the other position which was in the first quarter?
Mr. CEO, I assume this one's got wrapped to growth, but do you want to?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons there. One, we have regard for, the timeline it takes to recruit somebody. And so whilst we've scheduled, I'm just going to convince myself, just to remind me of the date we're looking to recruit in October. So even if, once council adopts the budget in 1 July, even if we hit the recruit go button there, would take at least 3 months from someone started. But in this time, we've decided to delay it just a short period of time. One to help balancing the budget in terms of all the competing priorities for expenditure this year. But we feel this is a good balance between limiting some of the cost impact for the first year, but also making sure we get that on board at least to help us out for 7 months, 8 months of the year. So we'll get the benefits we just spoke about.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Davies?
Yep.
Agree with that? Councillor Hennessy?
Yeah, thank you. There are at least 3 new positions in this budget, and there has been some concern raised already within the chamber, but I understand that we have done some investigation into the quantum of staff versus our growth. Can I have a bit more information on that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hennessy. I actually did a bit of research into the history of our staffing levels, just on the back of some of the commentary that came out of the discussions around the draft budget. So I went back 10 years, back to 2016, had a look at our staffing levels as they correlate to our population. So essentially I said our population at that point in time was, I can't think of the next number, but I took that number and I divided into it our staffing numbers. And I come up with a metric of 1 staff member per 200 community members. Then I did that same exercise for each year going forward to this current proposal. And within about 3 to 5 staff, 3 to 5 members of the population, the average of 200 members of the population to 1 staff member remained largely consistent. Now, it's not a perfect measure, I might add, but it does say in broad strokes, council staffing numbers have stayed relatively consistent as it pertains to our population numbers. We certainly haven't seen a growth of employee numbers disproportionate to our community growth. I think the overarching thing I would like to reinforce with the elected members is that we've been very conscious to reinvest in, I call it our front-facing services. So you think about the compliance officer and the 2 roles we're talking about are on the outside workforce, working directly to provide services to the community. I've certainly had a preference to recommend that for council rather than investing in management roles. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. No, that's
Does that answer your
helpful. As I
question?
say, they're just indicators, but it does give the community perhaps a bit more information.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Any other questions before I look for a mover? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Just in regard to the Aspire Estate walking connection, I understand there might be, that's quite a large amount there for a walking connection. Can the CEO please provide a little more detail on that one? but also whether things like that are likely to come down in cost to council if we're successful in state government grants, etc.
Certainly. I'll get David just to talk us through the particular detail of where it runs from and to, but just in terms of the amount that we've got in our budget, we've got just under $1 million, or I think it's just under $1 million allocated there. Now, last year we approached the federal government for a grant for close to $400,000. Now, that wasn't forthcoming. We certainly got to the point in time where I believe it expedient for council to make the investment and provide this path for the community. I have made approaches to the state government. I might add that I think the funding opportunities are fairly minor, but it may be up between $50,000 and $100,000. Now I won't know an answer on that until after the election is completed. I deliberately haven't placed the income side of that into the budget because it is an unknown. So at this stage, I'm recommending to council that we budget the full cost, and if we do manage to achieve any revenue, it'll be of a small benefit or small bonus for the project and council's bottom line. And sorry, I'll just refer to David just to talk us through the actual logistics of the path.
Certainly. So through the chair, the predominant charges in that are relating to lighting. That's the most expensive part of this project because it is a lit shared path. So we need to run new lighting, new power, new supply charges, etc. into that space. But it is the full 2.5 metre wide asphalt shared path that you see around the linear reserves that we've got, but it's a fully lit version of that connecting the whole way through from the edge of the Sweat Track Reserve, end of Greenside Boulevard there, through to the Gawler Bypass, underpass alongside. So essentially in between the Main North Road bypass and Trinity College in the road reserve area there, being a fully lit, compliant 2.5 metre wide asphalt path with the bulk of the cost in that lighting. Yep.
No, so it's obviously not, it's obviously not ideal to have a medium density development without any access to public transport, but is that through the mayor maybe, is that achieving a link to public transport which wasn't previously available as well?
It is upgrading an informal pathway that does provide that critical linkage.
And through the chair, part of our other footpath works in next year's budget planned and proposed is doing a formal footpath connection on the other side of the underpass to actually get to Tamburlaine Station after people have walked through. So there is a connection at the other end that runs along Dawson Dysart to the bus stops there as well. So it will create the best linkage we have in the public spaces from Aspire to Tamburlaine Station.
Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Deputy Mayor?
yeah, it does. Thanks.
And also, Mr. CEO, is it fair and reasonable for me to say that should we secure some grant funding, we will not increase our borrowings to the totality of the project, which then lessens how much we go into debt for that project?
Yeah, quite correct. Yep.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions before I look for a mover? Councillor Davis?
Yeah, so just again on that Aspire Estate walking connection and on the cost, I guess just understanding, you mentioned the lights. I was just wondering, just in comparison to because our entire new footpath program otherwise is 750,000, and then this footpath is 900,000 or 891. Is that how do I put it? Does that make sense on a like a metre to metre sort of basis? Like, is this going to be a longer path, or is it mostly just the lights and that sort of thing?
So through the chair, it is the lights that are the extra cost. If you compare lineal meterage of footpath to lineal metre of footpath, you will achieve the same for the same cost because we're laying those asphalt or concretes which are very similar in cost. But the reason the Aspire Estate is expensive is because of the lighting. We don't put lighting on our other new footpaths because they already have street lights in the roads that we're doing. Yep.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Davis? Do you want to, sorry, Councillor Davis? Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I might just add a little bit more detail. I think the lighting we're going for is solar lighting.
So I'd have to take that on notice to come back to the actual design outcome. But
sorry. I just want to talk about the length of footpath that we're looking to budget this year. And I think it's a good news story for the community, so I'll just touch on it. We've got $490,000 in our footpath renewal budget, so we're actually going to make a concerted effort around, I think, provision of footpaths, subject to council's adoption. I'm recommending that we do our normal renewal program, which is about $490,000, combined with this Aspire connection, which is a significant length, but also there's $750,000 of new footpath that I'm recommending council build. And the primary focus is creating connections that probably should already exist between existing footpaths. And in the rear of this document, I've actually alluded to where we believe we would like to make those connections for the benefit of the community in this document. So I think certainly from a community's perspective, what I've been hearing is that it's something the community's been asking for.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, partly where I was going with that, I'm just, I can't speak to the Williston ones, but the Dawson Road one in Evanston Gardens, I don't believe has very good lighting. I've walked through that in the dark and I usually use a torch on my phone. So I just was curious about the lighting upgrades that come with footpaths potentially.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Davies. Looking for any other questions before I look for a mover.
Yes.
You're happy to move and you're happy to second?
No, just a question, sorry.
Oh, a question, sorry.
Still.
Question, Deputy Mayor, and then I'll
Yeah.
look for a mover. Helen, you're happy to move? Yep, no worries.
Just quickly to you, Mayor, in regard to the verge maintenance, and other streetscape maintenance, just want to confirm that that's for the entire town. But I know it looks like it's bringing a couple of things which are already paying for new developments in-house as well.
Yeah, certainly happy to expand on that for the benefit of elected members and the community. With this particular bid, I'm asking council to invest in 2 new staff members to create a team of 3. Now I'm looking to utilise an existing staff member that I have within the depot at the moment. And the goal here is to actually take a look across the town of Gawler and look at how we are presenting largely our verges, but our public spaces for the benefit of our community. And I'm looking to, this isn't just focusing on the growth areas, this is looking to focus across the town of Gawler for the benefit of all. Now you could argue this is possibly a level of service increase, but in my humble opinion and from what I'm hearing, I think it's something our community are asking for us to show, I guess, a sort of enhanced level of care for our verge and our public domain. I think the final cost aspect of this is quite reasonable, given that what it would allow us to do is bring in-house some external contracts. So in the first year, we're talking about, I think, a $45,000 contract that we'll bring back in-house. Then in the second and third years, there's a $100,000 contract that we'll bring back in-house. I always think we have much greater control of the quality of product where we manage it in-house as opposed to managing an external contractor. I've got to admit, with those contracts, that's what really got this one over the line from my perspective, where I really think we are adding value back to the community. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Deputy Mayor?
It does, and I might
follow-up
question to that. So in the past, have we provided those sort of services to any part of the town before? Through Mr. Mayor,
what I would say is we have been providing a level of service. If we think about, I'll use Willis as an example, it would be a weed spray. I can't remember the frequency, but that's probably the level of service. What I'm talking about here is in those areas, for example, where we've done a weed spray, it might be a weed spray, but also going back and ensuring that the weeds that have grown are removed. And then the areas, but also looking after our growth areas, and some will have grass verge, some will have granitic sand verges, some will have gravel. But in all instances, it's looking at presenting them in a better condition for the community's enjoyment.
So just to clarify this, so we currently deliver some of these services in some parts of the town, but and with external contractors, but what this is doing is bringing it all together, having a comprehensive view of what needs to be done across the whole town, delivering it in an equitable way that also caters to each individual area.
Correct.
And we get rid of the contractors and make sure it's all done in-house. The college.
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent. All right. Sounds good.
Councillor Hughes, you had a question?
Just turn yours on, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Just on that, at the moment, ratepayers would put in customer requests and everything else if they require services extra. Is that being, those extra requests that do come in, are they being serviced at the moment?
Well, Mr Mayor, I might refer that to David, who can provide me insights.
Through the chair, yes. So that is the challenge with the current solution. It is very reactionary, and we're actually waiting for customer requests around verge maintenance to come in to treat those, because we don't have the crews out there proactively managing it, but they do come and attend to those requests in the best time that they can. Recent examples have been around the Springwood development, and also down through Trinity Drive, where we had some customer requests come through about overgrown grasses in our areas, and the crews do go out and treat those. This opportunity around this town presentation program is to be more proactive in that space and prevent the growth occurring to that point, to enable a reduction in that customer request and a better beautification for the township.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Hughes?
No, the question was, we're already paying for this service already, and this is an extra on top of that to be proactive. My concern is Playford Council spend millions of dollars on verge maintenance, so I'm concerned that we may end up in that sort of spiral.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Mr Stewart?
Thank you, Councillor Hughes, for your question there and the thoughts. I've had regard for that. I think there's a distinct difference with what I'm proposing. The model in Playford is based around committing to a certain number of mows per year for their verges. We're not making a commitment around 6 or 8 mows per year, which is what Playford's doing. I'm looking to contain this cost to the cost that's before you, and ensure that it doesn't blow out to cost an exorbitant amount. Thanks.
Did you have a further follow-up question?
Yeah, my understanding was that talking to the actual program managers at Playford, that the expectations just keep increasing, unfortunately, and that's the expectations that we need to manage.
Yep, no, I absolutely appreciate that.
No, good point there. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got 2 more questions on this one, because I want to make sure we're being quite robust with this. But I think there was, in a previous session, where this item was discussed, there was mention of the sand verges in Oleana waters. I just want to check, is there anything about that which would change under these circumstances? For example, were they not made to be the standard of the rest of the verges because of the compliance burden of maintenancing them, or was it other unrelated issues?
Through Mr Mayor, I think it's a fair comment that historically some of those developments were encouraged to go to granitic sand because it was felt that would provide a lower demand on verge maintenance. What we're seeing in reality, though, is that the reality of a granitic sand verge is that if that becomes wet, gets driven over, and is not maintained in a level flat condition, they actually provide as much maintenance issues as stone or grass. They actually have their own level of challenge if we're looking at how we're presenting our neighbourhoods.
And I imagine they don't have the same cooling effect or help us with our canopy targets as much as the other traditional verges as well.
True.
And then just the second question on that, I guess with the, we do have that season, especially when we got a bit of rain and some heat this last year, where we had to issue a number of compliance notices around fire safety. does this reduce the compliance burden of issuing notices around fire safety and other? This is that nature.
Through Mr Mayor.
I mean, I can probably have a crack at this one, then you can help me. But I think the compliancy side is on private land. I think what we're seeing come through for feedback from our community is, how can you expect us to slash our yard when you're not slashing yours? I think is the concern and the optics that we are managing as a council.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The second piece to that, and this is a bit embryonic, so it needs more work. There is an ongoing discussion I'd like to have with Department of Infrastructure and Transport around what their service levels that they guarantee the community and on their parcels of land. Because if we think about where the majority of the community concerns came from, it was largely around roads outside of our control. Now, if we do have greater level of capacity internally, there may, and I say may, it's a big may, because I need to talk to the government and make sure we have the resources. But there may be an opportunity for us to, on certain highly visible sites or high community concern sites, to assist, should they pay us for the privilege.
Yeah.
Does that answer your query, Deputy Mayor?
I think in a roundabout way it does, yeah. Thank you.
I think the two takeaways there were the compliancy side of things, that we're issuing a private property. Some of the optics are the mix between some state government areas and our own verges.
Yeah,
And
I think
the
that's
opportunity.
the majority. I understand the majority was on DRT land, and they have some issues with the privatised contractors. But but also it was just I wasn't quite sure where that those compliance issues that we were seeing, where we were issuing notices to people, and they were turning around and saying, "Hey, you haven't done your own land," but I wasn't sure if that was backyards or whether that was people's verges that they are responsible for at the current time.
Yeah. To be fair, the majority of compliance issues were backyards. One thing it would ensure is we can certainly make sure our house is in order, so we don't cop the criticism of not taking care of our own responsibilities first.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we could actually also potentially charge someone if they need their block slashed and they don't have the means to do it, the market rate where we come in and do it so they comply. Is that a potential as well?
We could do it. I think our first go-to is recommending private contractors. But worst case scenario, if it becomes a tail issue, I'm sure that's something that could be considered.
Did you want to add something to that, Andrew, before we look for a mover?
Yes, I think you've covered it. Basically, it's on private land. One thing I was just going to mention, that we just had some look at the stats in terms of seasons that's come and gone. But in October 23, we did 194 flammable notices, so 194. And in October 25, it was 574, so 2 to 3 times as much. So some properties managed to get notices 3 times in the same season. We had a fairly wet spring. It grew pretty quick. Tommy hit it pretty hard early on. Within 4 to 6 weeks, it was back again. It's been a tremendous workload and pressure on my team. But that's just the nature of what it is, that it was on private land.
Thank you, Andrew. Do I have any more questions before I look for a mover? There be none. Councillor Hennessy, you were happy to move? Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. A couple of things. I'm very happy that we've put this together. I thank the CEO and the staff for the way the information's been presented. I think that's an improvement, certainly for a member of the public reading through the explanations. I talked to the CEO. It is easy. I'm not sure how we could do this, but I mean, if you're looking in terms of the Aquatic Centre, we've actually got projects scattered across several different areas. Might be an idea to perhaps present it by project, but I'll leave that with staff. It does make it a bit confusing. I look forward to the audit and risk having a good look at this, as they have done in the past, and I will enjoy listening to their debate, particularly in terms of what they consider now with the movements we're doing with our long-term financial plan and the existing ECOSA report that we're dealing with. And my last comment is to reinforce what Councillor Hughes is saying. We while we're increasing staff to deal with some of our presentation, we must always remember to use Councillor Samble. This town is the best of town and country. It is not a leafy green suburb, and I think it pays for perhaps our planners when they're looking at development to make sure that things are developed in line with a standard that we accept here in Gawler and not a Golden Grove or a Playford. I think as a chamber we need to keep reinforcing that, because I think sometimes people coming here have expectations from perhaps where they've left, and they need to understand they've bought into a council that's not that big and not that rich, and that we have to have a service level that's appropriate. So on that basis, I'm very happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Do I have a seconder for the officer's recommendation? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, happy to second this. Yeah, thank you to staff, and thank you to the CEO for answering those questions there. I think it's a well-balanced budget, not just in terms of balancing the books, but also balancing where our investment is going within our community. We've got some exciting new projects in there, but we've also got some of those, what I would describe as bread and butter things that we're making sure that we're getting done right. You just have a quick glance through and you can see that there's investment in organisational culture, there's making sure that we have the staff to enable us to meet the standards that our community expect around compliance, and probably prioritise looking after those very valid concerns that we as elected members get from people within our community day after day, and ensuring that we're actually, not only do we have those robust bylaws and powers that are put in place by the state government, but we're actually able to enforce them on a level that makes a difference in people's lives, because any rule, any law, any policy is only as good as our ability to enforce that as a council. So I think that that's a very worthy investment in that particular staff member there. Also, we're investing in a lot of community infrastructure here. We're following through with some plans, including things like our playground upgrades, which we've committed to as part of our space strategy. Those are, investments which, those are undertakings which have had a huge number of people collaborate with council on that and give us our feedback through those consultations. And they're ones which people talk to me about often, and I think are quite exciting as well. Recently, I've also heard from people a lot about footpaths and how grateful they are for some of the footpath delivery and improvement or renewal that we've seen as part of the previous budget. And I think that there's some really, there's some good ones in here, which I know people have been talking about for a long time, that actually do things like increase the connectivity to public transport. That's taking pressure off our roads. It's meaning that people are actually able to access that in a way where, I've talked about it before, you can have the greatest access at the railway platform, but if you do not have a link to get there, if you do not have if you have mobility issues, it is useless to have a great platform and not have a linkage which enables you to actually get to the platform in the first place. So I think that there's some really good investments there in that respect. And then, of course, that continuous improvement of our internal systems, which I think we'll see, some savings over time as well, as we look at better ways to understand how our assets are ageing and need to be maintained, but also looking at our internal IT systems for some efficiencies as well. Thank you to staff, but particularly Sharon's team, for putting together this budget, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we go with the audit committee and with the community consultation. After that, of course.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion? Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Davies, I saw your hand.
A lot of the comments from Deputy Mayor Solomon I agree with, especially the footpath work and the linkages, which has been a really big problem, especially with new developments, and how they link in with the rest of the town has always been a big concern and a problem that we've had. It's really good using some of the cycling paths now in Gawler East and getting onto the bike paths and things like that. Those improvements have taken a number of years to actually get working, but it is really safe to be on those sort of pathways, and especially the wider ones, really good. And it's fantastic to see them used really well by the community as well. So I think the footpath work is really well. I am concerned about the extra verge work, and I have had people actually tell me that they'll stop doing their verges, so it'll be interesting to see what does happen there. And I think that is what's happened in other council areas with verge maintenance, and it goes from, I think Playford started with 2 or 3 cuts to 6 or 8 or whatever they're at now, plus the blowing, plus the collecting of everything else, and just the fact that the community then expects that higher level of service. So it's something we haven't provided in the past. We've been very careful, a bit like what Councillor Hennessy was saying with the handover of new areas that have been accepted by the council with landscaping. There's been a lot of work done over the last few years to try and standardise that, so it is easier for the council staff to take them over. So I do agree that we need staff to do that. I've got no problems with that. It's just how we keep people's expectations, because if we're already covering off on it, the requests that we're getting in at the moment, this is an extra service that we would be providing. So I do note that a lot of our gardens and things like that, the staff do struggle to keep up the maintenance on our existing work. So I think that that work is necessary, definitely. And using local natives and trying to use species that are adapted to climate change is really important. We're still planting species often that aren't suited to Gawler's climate or changing climate. So that is really important if we want to have a green town in the future as well. But I'd be interested, as Councillor Hennessy has said, to hear what the Audit Committee has to say. Overall, I think it is really good to see the explanations, as has already been said. This is the best information I think we've had as councillors that I've ever seen. So that's really good to see that work has been paid off, and the justifications for the positions are really quite robust from what I've looked at. So I can't really, other than the servicing. So yeah, really keen to see whether the Audit Committee comments, and yeah, it will come back to council. So looking forward to that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Davies, I saw your hand next.
Yes, I'm happy to support this motion to send this out to community consultation.
No, just to the Audit and Risk.
Audit.
Sorry to butt in. It's just to the Audit and Risk Committee, not to community consultation.
Yeah, sorry, to Audit and Risk to go to community consultation. Sorry, it is indirect, but yes.
It will come back to us first.
Yeah, it comes back to us first. But I think this is something that is, as Councillor Hughes says, some of the best, most understandable budget documents that I've seen, in terms of a member of the community being able to have a look at this agenda and understand the reasons behind why each decision was made. And I think that's a real positive step, because of course this is a great agenda, a great agenda full of great things, but it's never going to be as simple as just going through with it, because obviously there are things like the rates and that we haven't discussed that are high on the minds of many people in our community, and we'll have to work through feedback. But I think this is something that we've had a few sessions discussing, and I'm quite happy with where it's at.
Thank you, Councillor Davies, and sorry to correct you while you were speaking.
Yeah, all good.
just to make sure we're all 100% clear.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any further conversation? I think, Jim, you're the only one that hasn't spoke. Would you like to add anything at all, Jim? Councillor Vanlonga? No. Councillor Hennessy, would you like to close the debate?
No, that's fine.
You're happy for me to put that motion? No worries. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, members. To that end, being this was a special council meeting, that was our only item on the agenda. So I will now close the meeting at 7:40. Thank you very much, members, those in the gallery and those tuning in online. Thank you.
Just the one item. Yeah, here. Ladies item.
Do we know who that is?
I've seen him a number of times.
Taking an interest in. That's okay. He's allowed to do that. It is, no.
I've talked to him before. Oh, yeah, he's coming.
Yeah,
Okay, I have it.
excellent.
Good, thank you. Sorry,